Once upon a time in a faraway kingdom, there lived a fearsome monster. He was an enormous brute with sharp claws and teeth, and a fire that burned in his eyes. In fact, he looked so terrifying that no one dared approach him. In truth, however, the monster was a softy at heart. He stomped through the forest, startling animals who quickly scampered away. Have you seen a shiny yellow box around here? It's quite heavy. The girl tilted her head. A yellow box. I believe I have. She led the monster to a clearing where a tiny house sat between two oak trees. He dug holes in secret spots throughout the forest and hid treasure chests filled with gold coins and jewels inside. Then he made riddles about each hiding spot and wrote them down on scraps of paper. He tied the pieces of paper to rocks and dropped them into the nearby river, ensuring they'd float downstream and eventually end up in the hands of unsuspecting villagers. "There it is," she said, pointing to a spot under a bush. "I saw a squirrel carrying something similar yesterday." Startled, he turned to see a large rock fall from above, revealing a small piece of paper tucked inside. The note inside read, "Where shadows dance and sunlight gleams, a fortune sleeps amidst green dreams." Puzzled, Gareth looked around until he noticed the sunlight filtering through the leaves in a nearby clearing created a shimmering puddle on the ground. Looking closer, he saw a small treasure chest at the edge of the light. As he opened it, Gareth noticed something unusual. Inside, instead of gold coins, he found a key. Gareth, along with the other villagers, forgave him instantly. The villagers would visit him, bringing delicious treats and engaging in friendly competitions. The monster, overjoyed by the friendship, would regale them with tales of his adventures and mishaps. As for Gareth, he became the monster's closest friend, helping him search for lost treasure and solve riddles. Together, they continued to hide treasure chests throughout the land, bringing joy to countless people. And whenever someone discovered a hidden treasure, they knew that somewhere out there, the forest monster was watching, his heart full of happiness. They understood that the monster wasn't inherently bad, he was just lonely and needed a friend. Curious, Finn unfolded the paper and read the words. Suddenly, he remembered a line from one of the riddles, "Where shadows dance and sunlight gleams." Instead of coins or jewels, he found a mirror. "I think this goes with you," he said. The monster looked at the mirror and his eyes filled with tears. "My treasure," he whispered, realizing what he'd lost. Years ago, the monster had hidden the mirror in the forest, believing it to be the greatest treasure of all. It showed not just one's outer appearance, but also their inner beauty. However, he'd forgotten where he'd hidden it, and without it, he'd been lost and alone. Confused, Gareth stared at the mirror, wondering about its meaning. Just then, the monster appeared behind him. "So you found them all," the monster said, his voice echoing in the clearing. Startled, Gareth spun around and saw the enormous monster before him. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Then Gareth realized that the monster wasn't scary at all. In fact, he looked kind of lonely. Could it be? He raced to the clearing, where he found the key, and looked up at the tree with the strange bark. Could this be the last hiding spot? With a deep breath, he inserted the key into a small hole in the tree. To his surprise, it opened a hollow space in the tree. And when he looked inside, he saw the most magnificent treasure chest he'd ever seen. It was adorned with silver and gold, and intricate designs depicting mythical creatures. To find what lies beneath, take 3 steps forward, then turn to the west. At first, he'd been nervous about his plan, unsure if people would simply be greedy or worse, try to find his cave and take all his treasure. But seeing the joy his treasure brought, the monster felt a warmth in his heart that he'd never experienced before. He realized that while he loved having treasure, he loved making others happy even more. Excited, Finn followed the instructions and found a small treasure chest. He couldn't believe his eyes. The monster eagerly moved the bush aside, and sure enough, there was his treasure chest. Overjoyed, he thanked the girl and rushed home. A farmer named Bess was plowing her field when she, too, found a rock monolith with a piece of paper inside. The note read, "Where the river bends 3 times, your fortune awaits." Bess dropped her tools and ran to the river bank. There, nestled among the reeds, she discovered a treasure chest. When the monster stopped to catch his breath, he heard a small voice. "Are you lost, big monster?" Each person's discovery brought a smile to their face and a song to their heart. Villagers shared stories around the fire, comparing the riddles they'd solved and the treasures they'd found. Some of the riddles were easy to solve, while others posed quite a challenge. But each person who found a chest felt a sense of accomplishment that made the treasure even more precious. Startled, the monster turned to see a little girl standing before him. He had a deep affection for sweets, especially treasure chests full of gold coins. And let's just say he had quite a collection. He would often count his gold coins late into the night, relishing in their weight and feel. While he loved his treasure chests, it wasn't really the coins themselves that he cherished so much. It was the joy of finding them. Just then, a mischievous grin spread across his face. What if he buried some treasure chests in the forest and then gave clues to people on where to find them? Not only would they be pleasantly surprised, but he could make their day. And every time he did, he would store them back in the same place, under his favorite rock in the middle of the lake in his cavern. But one night the monster made a terrible mistake. After counting his coins, he forgot where he hid them. The monster frantically searched all over his cave, but to no avail. He even asked his pet squirrel, Chestnut, for help, but Chestnut only twitched its nose and ran up the monster's leg. The monster sighed. It seemed his treasure was lost forever. Determined to find it, the monster ventured out of his cave for the first time in years. The monster stammered, embarrassed. It had been so long since he'd spoken to anyone that he'd forgotten how. As he skipped through the forest, the monster realized something important, and so the monster got to work. One sunny morning, a young woodcutter named Finn was chopping down a tree when he heard a loud crash. News of the forest monster's treasure spread like wildfire. Soon, villagers from far and wide were coming to the forest, searching for treasure. As the days passed, more and more people found the monster's hidden treasure. Meanwhile, the monster watched from afar, hidden in the trees. One day, a brave knight named Gareth stumbled upon a rock monolith in the forest. Gareth returned to the forest, determined to find the final treasure. He retraced his steps, examining every riddle and clue. As Gareth opened the chest, his eyes widened in amazement. Taking a deep breath, Gareth approached the monster and handed him the mirror. Touched by Gareth's kindness, the monster apologized for any fear he'd caused and explained his love for collecting treasure chests. From that day forward, the monster was no longer feared, but celebrated.